A woman rides solo through Saudi Arabian deserts, through Pakistani mountains where tourists rarely venture, across Africa, south to north. No tour group, no support vehicle, just her motorcycle, and a camera. Her name is Noraly Schoenmaker, but 3 million followers know her as Itchy Boots. She's traveled 190,000 kilometers through 80 countries, built a YouTube empire, and became a best-selling author. But her story doesn't start with adventure. It starts with complete devastation, with betrayal that shattered everything she thought she knew about her life. Noraly wasn't always a wanderer. She was a geologist with a master's degree in geochemistry, working on massive ships and in gold mines around the world. From Kuwait to Kazakhstan, from the Bahamas to Brazil. She had a career people respected, a comfortable home in the Netherlands, and a partner she'd built her life around. Then everything collapsed in a single moment. She discovered her live-in partner had been having an indecent affair. Not just a mistake or a brief lapse. A long-term relationship, hidden from her for months or possibly years. Every memory suddenly felt tainted. The home they shared became suffocating. In an instant, at 31 years old, Noraly found herself facing a terrifying reality. Her relationship was over, and she had nowhere to go. Most people would lean on family, take time to process, maybe see a therapist. Noraly chose something more drastic. She quit her geology job, sold nearly everything she owned, booked a one-way ticket to India with no return date planned. She'd traveled before through her work, visiting over 70 countries while collecting rock samples and studying geology. But this trip was different. This wasn't about science. This was about survival, about figuring out who she was when everything familiar had been stripped away. She landed in India with a backpack and started a blog called Itchy Boots, inspired by the phrase about having itchy feet. The plan seemed straightforward: backpack around, write destination guides, share travel tips, keep moving forward. She began documenting her journey through India and Bangladesh, writing about temples and markets and cheap hostels. Then she arrived in a small mountain town called Noraly in northern India and noticed something that made her heart skip. Motorcycles everywhere. Rentals were incredibly cheap, and suddenly she remembered something she'd lost. Back in the Netherlands, before everything fell apart, Noraly had owned a Ducati Monster. She'd gotten her license in 2015 and bought that bike secondhand. Whenever she wasn't working or traveling for geology projects, she'd ride for hours without any destination. Just her and the machine and the open road. Always alone. Just riding. When she decided to leave the Netherlands permanently, she'd sold that Ducati with genuine pain, knowing she was saying goodbye to something that brought her joy. Now, staring at a white Royal Enfield Himalayan, available for rent in Noraly, she felt that pull again. She took it. 3 weeks. 3,000 kilometers through the Himalayan mountains. Completely solo, with zero off-road experience, just figuring everything out as she went. Somewhere on those winding mountain roads, feeling the engine beneath her and the wind rushing past, Noraly had a revelation. This was how she needed to travel. Not cramped in buses or waiting for trains, free on 2 wheels, able to stop anywhere, go anywhere, feel everything. When she returned the rental bike, she made a decision that seemed absolutely insane to everyone who knew her. She went to Delhi and bought a brand new Royal Enfield Himalayan. Cost her about $2,400. She named it Basanti, after a character from a famous Bollywood movie called Chalet. She also bought a GoPro action camera because she realized something important. Writing about these experiences wasn't enough. She needed to show people what this felt like. So she started a YouTube channel, kept the name Itchy Boots, and began filming her rides. Her initial plan was modest: ride from India to Malaysia through Myanmar and Thailand. Document the journey, see what happens. What actually happened was far bigger than she imagined. That ride turned into a 9-month epic covering 370 miles across 25 countries. She rode through Iran, where locals welcomed her despite the tensions, through Tajikistan along the Afghan border, seeing landscapes most people only see in documentaries, across the snowy peaks of Central Asia in conditions that would terrify experienced riders. The journey tested every part of her. Basanti broke down on impossibly steep mountain passes with no help for miles. She got stuck in thick mud and had to rely on complete strangers to pull her bike free. She dealt with catcalling in some countries, mechanical failures in others, and the constant weight of being totally alone in unfamiliar territory. There were moments she doubted everything, wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake leaving the safety of her old life. But something unexpected kept happening. People helped her. Mechanics fixed her bike without charging her much, sometimes nothing at all. Families invited her into their homes for meals even though they'd just met her. Locals gave her directions, warned her about bad roads, offered places to stay. She discovered something that changed her perspective on everything. The world is filled with far more kindness than danger. The news shows you the worst, but on the ground, traveling through these so-called dangerous places, she found generosity everywhere. Slowly, something inside her began to heal. She started trusting again, not just other people, but herself, her own judgment, her ability to handle whatever challenge came next. By the time she rode Basanti back into the Netherlands 9 months later, she was completely transformed. She wasn't that broken-hearted woman who'd fled anymore. She was someone who'd proven she could handle anything. And her YouTube channel was growing fast. People were watching, commenting, asking for more, so she kept going. She planned an even bigger adventure, Patagonia to Alaska. She got a new Royal Enfield with Dutch registration plates and named it Dano. Started riding through Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, and Peru, documenting everything. Then global chaos struck. The pandemic shut down the world. Borders closed overnight. Suddenly, Noraly was trapped in Lima, Peru, with her motorcycle and no way forward or back. She had no choice but to fly home and leave Dano behind in storage. It took 8 agonizing months to get the bike shipped back to the Netherlands. But Noraly refused to stay still. She bought a used Honda CB500X, named it Ronin, and explored Northern Europe, Iceland, Denmark, Sweden, Norway. When borders closed again during another wave, she made an audacious move. Relocated entirely to South Africa. Bought another Honda, a CRF 250L she called Savannah. Spent 6 months riding through South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. She even entered the Kalahari Rally, a legitimate desert race that destroys bikes and test riders to their absolute limits. By this point, her channel had absolutely exploded. Millions of subscribers, hundreds of millions of views. She wasn't just some travel vlogger anymore. She was running a legitimate business with merchandise, an academy teaching people how to film motorcycle adventures, and major sponsorships with brands like Revit motorcycle gear. She'd ridden over 190,000 kilometers through 80 different countries on 6 motorcycles, each one carefully named and cherished. Basanti, Dano, Ronin, Savannah, Alaska. Each bike had carried her through different chapters of this incredible journey. Her daily videos showed the real side of adventure travel, not just gorgeous sunsets and perfect moments, but breakdowns in the middle of nowhere. Confusion at border crossings, the exhaustion of riding 10 hours straight. Viewers loved the honesty. They felt like they were right there with her, experiencing everything firsthand. Then publishers started reaching out. They wanted her story in book form. For years she'd resisted, thinking she'd already shared everything on YouTube. But in 2024, she finally sat down to write. And she discovered something surprising. There was a whole other side to her story she'd never shared on camera. The deepest fears, the private thoughts, the emotional journey underneath all those miles. She called the book Free Ride. Free Ride, Heartbreak, Courage, and the 20,000-mile motorcycle journey that changed my life. Covered her first season, that initial ride from India back home. Published in June 2025, it became an instant New York Times bestseller. Critics praised her honest writing and her ability to transport readers to places they'd never see otherwise. But Noraly's story isn't just about triumph. It's about what happens when everything goes wrong. Again. In 2024, during Season 7 while riding through Africa on her Honda CRF 300L rally named Alaska, she crashed. The accident happened along the western coast as she explored remote regions. Her collarbone broke. She got initial treatment in Africa, but the injury was severe enough that she had to fly back to the Netherlands for surgery. Then complications hit. During the procedure, her lung was accidentally punctured. The pain became unbearable, far worse than the broken bone itself. For months she couldn't ride, couldn't film, couldn't do the one thing that had saved her life 6 years earlier. Her channel went silent. Comments flooded in from worried followers. Was this the end of Itchy Boots? But anyone who knew her story understood. This woman had rebuilt herself from nothing before. She'd do it again. During recovery, she stayed productive, promoted her book launch, connected with her community through updates, thanked people for their incredible support, and she started planning again because Noraly never stays still for long. Once her body healed enough, she was already studying maps and plotting routes for the next adventure. For Season 8, she chose something that surprised many people. Not a modern bike loaded with technology, but a vintage Yamaha XT600Z Tenere. This motorcycle wasn't even manufactured in this century. It's simple, mechanical, bulletproof. No complicated electronics that fail in remote areas. Just a reliable engine and proven engineering. She had it customized by a specialist who upgraded the suspension, lighting, and luggage systems to her exact specifications. The fact that electric start was considered a major advancement for this model shows how old school it is. But that's precisely what she wanted: simplicity and dependability. Starting from Istanbul, she launched into another massive journey with only vague plans. A general idea of the destination, but the route. That would reveal itself along the way. As of late, 2025, she's deep into Season 8, currently riding through Kyrgyzstan. The channel is back. Daily videos are flowing. Millions are watching again. What makes her story so powerful isn't just the places or the distances. It's the transformation. She started as someone whose world had completely shattered, who felt betrayed and lost and uncertain about everything. She could have become bitter, could have closed herself off from trusting anyone ever again. Instead, she chose to open herself to the world despite having every reason not to. And what she discovered was beautiful. When you lead with genuine curiosity and openness, people respond with incredible kindness. She now speaks 5 languages, has visited 80 countries, built a community of 3 million subscribers who tune in daily, been interviewed by major publications, and inspired countless others to take their own journeys. Her advice to aspiring writers reflects her philosophy: figure things out yourself, make your own mistakes, learn through experience. She's too rebellious for rigid rules or telling people they must do things a certain way. But perhaps most importantly, Noraly proved that your worst moments don't have to define you. That heartbreak can be a beginning instead of an ending. That sometimes the best response when everything falls apart is to get on a motorcycle and see where the road takes you. She's still out there, riding into the unknown,